Hi everyone, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Going to take a little break from the Go Show. I'm going to do a little bit different type of video today. It's been coming up a lot lately. Also, before I forget, I want to put a link to a video in the description here of Lex Friedman. And you may already be aware of him. He's a YouTuber whose main focus, although his main focus is on AI and more specifically autonomous driving vehicles and that technology, he has discussions on all sorts of topics, philosophical, life experience, mathematics, and everyday life. And recently he had a long conversation with a young woman who escaped North Korea with her family, who wrote a book about the diaspora between how she was raised, how the whole country was raised in idolatry of the Kim family, kind of like Pharaoh, and the tremendous, almost unfathomable journey she had to go through in simply liberating her mind through South Korea and now in the United States. She wrote a book. Anyway, I encourage you to watch this. And very early on in the conversation, they have one of Lex's favorite topics is love. Anyway, this comes up early in their conversation: love, evil, not the idea of what a self is, basically. Although they don't put it in those words. And what this young Ms. Park says, she references Buddhism, but I think what she says will mostly go above people's heads, unless even practicing Buddhists, because what I want to talk about today is something that people, Buddhists, because the reason I'm here is to talk to practicing Buddhists, right? There's a certain insight about Buddhism that Shakyamuni struggled his whole life with expressing to his students. And he came to a resolve in the Lotus Sutra. But I think even with all of that, we still, especially in our day, in the latter age, which he predicted would happen, is that we're so filled with this ignorance about who we are, what we are, how we are, that the Buddhist practice now has to be extremely direct in order to penetrate this huge mass of misdirection from attachment, from distraction, from all these other things. And recently a question came up. You can look at it in the comments. Drew, thank you for asking. It's a question I've heard before. It's a question I've come across myself about the body. And I said something recently in a video, and he took issue with it. And how much can you discuss on a forum or a comment? And I thought I needed to spend more time talking about this because it's a very important distinction of Buddhism. I think it's a critical piece of the puzzle that will help any of us who are practicing wrestle with hard to put into words this concept of what this life is or put next to, in juxtaposition to, what is it to live the Buddha way, the Bodhisattva way? What is it to instantiate Buddha? What does that look like, right? This question keeps roiling under the surface. But I think, not that I think I'm so enlightened as to be able to give that to you. As I've said many times, there is no, the only authorship of Buddha is your own. And I think a discussion about the cosmological, biological, chemical reality of this body, this human thing we call a self, the I, and that's an important distinction, by the way, is a very elaborate construct of what this is, this body, and how it's manipulated and used throughout human history to affect controls, acquiescence, idolatry, and everything. Our human behavior, so much, if not all of our human behavior, is somehow based in reference to this body. And I don't mean we think of that all the time. It's just inculcated, there's that word again, into our perception, our understanding, and our goal setting of this human life. Now, having said all that, I want to make you also aware that I have a chemical burn that I went to the hospital for in my eye, my left eye. So if you notice that it's cloudy, I certainly do, because I've got ointments in it, but it may be greasy around this left eye and may look a little odd, and I'm blinking a lot. So be aware that I'm dealing with that, speaking of the body. And right now my body is thirsty, so I'm going to put a little moisture in my mouth. So the statement I had made that Drew took exception to, and I think if you watch enough of my videos, you'll already know or have some idea how I approach this, but I believe I was making reference to Buddhism as not being a religion, and that religions of the world, whatever they are, from Hinduism and Jainism to Christianity and Judaism, and I studied Kabbalah, and Islam, and on. There are many. And pagan religions. Talk about adhered to the body. But all religions are no different. The body in religion, because it is such an immediate identification for us humans, what's the first thing we know? Right? We come out of the womb peeing and pooping and getting hungry and wanting to be touched and wanting to touch and put things in our mouth. Everything's about this body. So this is a point of weakness or a point of entry into the human mind. And I'll remind you before I get into this, something I repeat constantly is Buddhism is all about the mind. So, whether you call it a religion or not Buddhism, but this subject of belief systems, is also why I think the word believe or belief is a tripwire for us, especially in the West. But I think everywhere it's a common theme throughout humanity. It's a linguistic device to fundamentally create a sort of an idolatry. You know, think of Pharaoh. A man or woman, certainly, but viewed as, accepted as, followed as a deity, a non-human, just a provisional human form of some omniscient power to control the populace. A point of discipline, punishment, and reward for the populace. That does a couple of things right away. First of all, it takes away the populace's power to do anything about their life. So in a way, there's a appealing to our laziness, a relief that, I don't have to worry about this. This deity, this personages, this source will take care of it for me. They'll tell me what to think, what to eat, what to follow, what to pray, right? How to behave with the others around me. And by the way, I know that all the others around me aren't truly responsible for themselves. But they are this, and this is the key point, those bodies that can't do anything for themselves other than follow this great omniscient force, they are then the source or the location of punishment, of atonement, of immolation, because the immolation's already there. You've already immolated yourself. You've already lost your, what's the word? Your self-agency. You've given it up to this other source. So with that goes all your power. But paradoxically, if you do something that the powers that be don't like, they don't take the suffering or the punishment for it. You do. So your body becomes the tool of manipulation. Your body becomes the location of badness, whatever you want to call it. It's sullied. Its worth is only in its ability to withstand the punishments it so severely deserves. It makes me want to cry how pathetic that is. And so from that viewpoint, when I say things like, this is completely contradictory to Buddhism, we don't use the body in this way at all in Buddhism. Buddhism isn't about that body, this body. Buddhism is not about that. It may sound like I'm doing my own immolating and invalidating of the body. But that's not so. What I should do better is to then juxtapose how Buddhism views the body with its own importance. So that's what I want to do in this video. I want to make absolutely clear not only the huge difference in the way Buddhism views human life than anything called a religion or societal conform, or what's happening in North Korea, which is a form of cult idolatry. It is a religion. Kim Jong-un's entire ancestry is religion. But hopefully after I'm done babbling today, you'll have a better idea why I think the idea of body in Buddhism is completely disconnected from any of those versions of what this body is about. In our thinking, in our belief systems, in our governance, in our societal constructs and rules and laws and all of that. So you can't talk about the body in Buddhism without talking about quiescent energy, the nidana, the process of manifestation from that quiescent energy into something, whether it's an atom or a molecule or a collection of molecules. And that attractive force that starts to amass that is the beginnings of our very existence, which is attachment, quite literally. And that attachment comes from what? A desire to manifest something. In Buddhism, the idea of body starts pre-body. It starts with what is the process, the willful process at work, whether it starts accidentally or serendipitously. The moment it starts, this force starts to build within it. It's like a rabbit or a rabbit, like a chicken or egg kind of thing. Does the nidana start because there's a will for it to start? Or does it serendipitously start whenever a certain, not a specific, but just a parameters begin, and then it instantiates from it? Right? We talk about tendencies and conditions in Buddhism. And so there's a tendency of energy to want to amass, to not want. See, that's a very human imposition. This is the language thing. So I'll point that out several times to remind you. Because we're trying to use language to assimilate an understanding of something we don't understand. But we see evidence of it. We've studied enough science, quantum, and physics and chemistry and biology. We've studied enough the nature of things that we're getting to that point where we're looking at the this not that origination, because we're looking at in quantum gravity, quantum fields, the in and out of thingness. There is no thing, there is a thing. The electron momentarily appears and disappears. What do you mean disappears? We're struggling with this in science right now. We're talking about things being dark because we don't see them. In order to measure something, you need to see it. So we have dark matter, dark energy. That's not because the energy itself is dark. It's because it's not seeable to us in this samsaric realm. It's like the speed of light. Some people and scientists talk about the speed of light being the fastest speed in the universe. Not so. It's the fastest speed, the fastest increment, the smallest increment that we can perceive. That's all that is. It's a measurement. It's not the actual speed of a photon. It's all that we can measure with any accuracy. It's a limitation of our understanding. Thus, the word dark simply means to us not understandable. We are such brilliant beings with our minds, not with our bodies, that we have come to the edge of what our bodies, mechanically or physically ourselves, can perceive. Hooray! But see, in Buddhism, we would celebrate that limitation because we understand, at least conceptually, what is on the other side, pre whatever. We understand that process of very quiet, of least entropy, to use science talk. Entropy being a process of constantly greater and greater randomness, chaos, right? That all systems move toward entropy, greater and greater randomness and chaos. That's an interesting concept. So pre-nidana, a Buddhist observation, is a very low entropy system, a system I call quiescent energy. There is energy, but it is quiescent. It is very low in entropy. But even as low as that entropy is, there are tendencies, because it is something, for that energy to combine, amalgamate. It's not static. I didn't say dead energy. I didn't say no energy, nothing. Any physicist would argue with you that there's no such thing as nothing. Is, take it literally as no thing. In other words, nothing has combined to manifest into something. So in Buddhism, we refer to that quiescent energy as nomina instead of phenomena. It's nomina. There's no thing. But there's potential for anything, because the energy that is the fundamental construct of subatomic particles, of quarks, of bosons, of so on and so forth, starts here. And wherever it begins to assimilate, to manifest, to instantiate, it has the potential to continue that, call it a chain reaction, or just to combine with other things. That is a tendency. But that tendency needs to be supported by conditions. Are the conditions in that moment, in that location, of the kind that can promote further interactions and amalgamations as we follow in the Nidana? And if they are, this is the path that they follow. That's the Nidana. The Nidana is a description, the 12-linked causal chain of these elements of energy, these types of energies, these types of tendencies, not only in the right conditions, but themselves creating conditions for other tendencies to then partake. It's a very beautiful construct, like fractals, right? And they precipitate something that leads to something else, that with other some things, and at some point there's enough of an amalgamation that it creates its own inertia, right? Like a snowball coming down a mountain, and it collects more and more and more tendencies and conditions, both within and created by those tendencies amalgamating, which leads to an inexorable momentum to manifest. Now you can call that a will, you can call that volition, but the only way you could use those linguistics is if you start to assign a sort of consciousness to this process. Now in Buddhism, that consciousness does at some point instantiate. It manifests. But where in that process, it's a little bit fluid. Although the Nidana takes a stab at showing the tendencies and conditions whereby it starts to desire itself, like vision consciousness. I think I want to perceive my environment. One of the first ways I might want to perceive that is vision. Maybe it's oral. Maybe it's touch, smell. Which is first? Don't quite know. We just know this is a prerequisite. Is that once there's a sensation of environment, there immediately follows a sensation to want to perceive it. How do I perceive my environment? Maybe all those six senses come at once. because I'm including the mind in there. There's consciousness. By virtue of that being consciousness, the very will to want to perceive the environment creates the other consciousness of vision, oral, taste, smell, touch, right? Those are consciousnesses in Buddhism. So it's very easy to argue, if you understand that process, that the body comes after the consciousness. So, without getting any more granular than that, it becomes, I think you can follow this, that consciousness wanting to perceive itself in its environment decides it wants to have physical form. That is the entity that combines with the sperm and the egg to make a baby. This is why I've always said there are 3 entities in a birth, not 2. The child is not a product of the mother and father. It's a co-conspirator, if you will, a co-constructor, a co-builder, in that the karmic energy in the mother and the father, when it is under the right conditions, the tendency to support a new instantiation of body, they combined to provide a earthly situation of manifestation that supports this kind of life, to combine that third party, that now conscious desire to be within. And so those 3 make baby. And this is why from this follows that when you live your life, you have karmic traits, tendencies of your mother, karmic energy, traits, tendencies of your father. But now they're, along with your own tendencies, in a new condition of your identified human body. But why is that human body here? It's not here to atone or be celebrated as a deity, or to be punished, or to be controlled. It's here for one reason and one reason only: to provide the amazing ability to then look back at what you came from. That's enlightenment, my friends. When you're instantiated in a body, you are here to support the mind, and the mind's perception of all these tendencies and conditions that have amassed together to experience what they want to experience, all embodied in the you or I that we instantiate in this world. But for one reason, beyond simple physical, aha, here's what this is, but to perceive that consciousness perceiving itself, that consciousness seeing the grand scheme of the whole thing, not just the self, but the process that the self is of. Now, it's easy to create deities around this because it's so bewilderingly awesome. But it's also easy to bury yourself under these mystical, magical powers. They're not mystical, magical. That's the history of human civilization, playing this game of power, politics, manipulation, so on and so forth. Man against man, woman against woman, so on and so forth, every variation. Governor from governed. But the truth is, we are all governor and governed by our thoughts, by our mind. And this is the great enlightenment of Shakyamuni Buddha. That if you want to end suffering in life, you need to be able to push away all of these provisional, weird power plays of human beings, which are created, admittedly, by our own attachments to this avarice for permanence and connection and control and having not, and all those tendencies and conditions screaming at us for attention, if we could just remove ourselves from that for a moment and peer into this entire process from quiescence to instantiation, and further be able to consciously perceive that this process is the universe, the plants, the cats and dogs, the beautiful birds, the sounds, the smells, the wetness, the joy, and the suffering, and be able to be disconnected from it, not influenced, as I always say, not affected, but effected mentally and separately by seeing it without emotion, without attachment, without manipulation of any sort, and just the wonder at it. Just, wow, how amazing is it that this massive process is what I'm experiencing right now, what I'm able to experience right now. How amazing is this? To see that process free of anxieties about any part of it is to be liberated from suffering. Also, develop deep, profound appreciation for all of it. And couldn't you say that deep, appreciation for all of it is the definition of love? You see, love has many colors, doesn't it? You can love your job. You can love that drawing that you made 10 years ago or just today. You can love another human being. There's no problem with that. This is why Nichiren says, go ahead, go home, have some wine, make love to your wife, and while you guys are making love, chant the Daimoku in your heads or out loud. Because earthly desires are enlightenment. Do you see what that means? There's no fetish of the body there. The body, if you see it correctly, in Buddhism, the body is the seat or the opportunity of the mind, of consciousness. And so we pay tremendous respect to the body. We don't get rid of the body. We don't immolate the body. We don't punish the body. We don't deny our sexual desires or our food desires, our shelter desires. There's just not a lot of, there's nothing in Buddhism that makes the body the seat of that control. But there's a lot of analogies in Buddhism about the burning house, about burning one's flesh or giving up one's body. Because that's a mental decision to not allow this earthly bodily existence to take precedence over our clear mind of Buddha. Because only in that clear mind of Buddha do we get it. Do we get why this is so important? That's a profound respect for the body in its proper place in the equation of enlightenment. Because enlightenment isn't outside the body, it's within it. It's within the mind of that instantiation of our nidana, our flow of energy. Our mind exists in the flow of that energy, not in the static being of it, the judgment of it. The body provides us provides our mind And from the mind, we perceive the entire play of life itself. That is preeminent in Buddhism. The way we make decisions, the way we instantiate our thoughts, the same way we instantiate our lives, the nidana, happening moment to moment all the time. That's what we want to perceive. That's what we want to see. That's the truth. The great love of life. Not this one, not that one, not this one. All of it. So we don't deny the body in Buddhism. When we use examples in the sutras from immolations, or what appear immolations of the body, it's not an actual immolation of the body. Unlike religions, like crucifixions, like burning at the stake. There's none of that in Buddhism. That's why these monks that burn themselves in effigy, it's horrible. It's not Buddhism. That's a tremendous misunderstanding. Our bodies, our life in samsara, in Buddhism, is an exceedingly precious thing. But it is not the thing. It is precious for its opportunity to perceive the grandeur of this. And that's very egalitarian. That's very no difference between you and I and everything. I am a planet. I am a country. I am a little tiny amoeba. I am everything and nothing at the same time. It's incredibly humbling and incredibly awe-inspiring. You see, to talk about the body in Buddhism is a very disembodying thing. The body, make no mistake, is very important in the teaching, the expedient device of Buddhism. But all of it is in service to Buddha, that enlightenment, that knowledge, that experience, which can only be had in this situation. Otherwise, it's not perceivable. You need a perceiver in order to have a perception. So that obviates the need, and perhaps the only reason for, this instantiation. How does that floor you? It does me. It just knocks me on my ass, quite frankly. This is the perception we want to find when we chant to our mandala, all this physical stuff, so that we can launch from, not leave like discard, but launch from this material existence to this all-knowing perception of all life. While we're in samsara, which is the only way we can have that perception. Again, you need a perceiver in order to perceive, right? This is why the mirror analogy is used so much throughout Buddhism. Everything is a mirror. Because without a mirror, there's nothing to see. It makes me giggle because it's such a phenomenally simple thing to realize, and it's so hard to hang on to. So, is the body important in Buddhism? Abso-frickin-lutely. But not for itself. It is not the seat of power. It is the mind that is the seat of power. It is the mind that creates all our suffering, and it is the mind that can liberate us from it. Buddhism is about the mind. It's not about atonement. Is that for all the use of evil and reward and all that? That's just planetary physics. That's just Buddhism talking through the samsaric experience to try to get to this essential point. And this is why the second half of the Lotus Sutra is called the essential teachings. Everything else is to try to get your mind to where you'll understand this point. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. This is a self-realization practice. All the power is in your mind. I can't give that to you. Only you can. Only you can teach yourself this. That is also why this is not a religion. This is a practice of tools and methodologies to get our samsaric human mind to release enough of its grip on all this thingness to peer over it with our minds and go, wow, isn't this amazing? I don't have to be affected by anything. I don't have to be influenced only in this grand experience of Buddha. Isn't everything amazing from this point of view? This is the joy of Buddhahood. Okay. Well, I went on a pretty good long time about this. I hope that clarifies the situation. Along with my drippy, messed up eye. I hope that wasn't too distracting. I can't really see it. But I figured I had to point it out because I feel stuff coming, congestion, everything. Anyway, I'm getting better. Don't worry. Thank you for your concern. I am concerned for your wellness, and especially as it relates to your understanding and practice of your Buddha. Myoho Renge Kyo. Keep making it stronger. Keep asking me tough questions. Hopefully, I'll produce more quality information, support, inspiration, whatever these videos can be as a tool to help you practice, understand your practice, strengthen your practice. That's my only reason for doing this. Oh, along with my own practice. Because we're all the same, right? Chasing Buddha. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you so much for listening, for being here. Feel free, of course, as always, to download this as a podcast so you can listen to it at your leisure. Or in listening parties like the old radio shows. I wonder if anyone does that. That'd be really cool. Take care of yourselves. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I'll see you in the next one. And we'll get back onto some Go Show. Thanks, Drew, for inspiring this video. And take care of yourself. Bye for now.